First up is Tim Coates. Tim has his MBA from Harvard and is one of the most creative people that you will find around that we're lucky enough to have with us working at the state level on a variety of new projects. We'll be talking about the innovation ecosystem that was just announced by the governor in October and is already rolling out. Tim, if you will, tell us what an innovation ecosystem is and why it's important to these guys.
Mike, you took away my first slide. So what I thought I would do is this, as Mike said, we got launched on October 26th was the official launch date for this project. What I thought I would spend the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes talking about is simply what this project is, where the mission for this project comes from, and talk a bit about what's actually going on now. This is a very ambitious, it's got a broad scope, but there are things that are happening right now in innovation hubs across the state that are probably going to be relevant for some of you here. And it's good to see Gad here, work with Gad, and then folks from SCORE. You from SCORE. Who was the other SCORE individual? Okay, we should talk afterwards. So this is all. This is great. John, if you could do it. So the innovation ecosystem. So you can all kind of read that slide. Its purpose is to fundamentally establish a system of entrepreneur support throughout Connecticut. So one of the things that we hear a lot speaking to entrepreneurs is, how do I even navigate all the different organizations, all the resources? I'm sure SCORE hears this all the time. There's a lot of opportunities out there, but how do I know who I should go to for the concerns I have right now? And so so when I speak about a system of entrepreneur support, that's what I speak about. John, can you get to the next slide? And so this is a system shown graphically. So as companies enter into a development stage, they go through different steps. So they would start at this inspire stage where I'm tinkering on something. I'm thinking that it would be a good sound wave processor. What was the Kickstarter? This is something that I'm working on. You know what? It's finally working. This is really cool. What happens next? So they go to a discovery phase and then action phase. Then they're at a startup where they're actually now I'm serious about starting an actual company. I need staff. I need to think about competition, about customers, and then there's scale, and then growth. And so this project is really concerned with companies that have reached the growth stage. We call that stage 2, and that's roughly for companies under 100 people. Next slide. So you might have seen some of these before, or have had some people here who have talked about how come Connecticut hasn't grown jobs. And I was at an event that the governor spoke at recently that talked about Connecticut hasn't had a net new job in 22 years. And we are the only state besides Michigan that has had that record. And Michigan has had reasons for it that we all know about. And Connecticut doesn't really have the same excuse. And so what's going on? So you can see that we're 48. This is up until 2009. Extend that forward, we're 49. Next slide. One of the things that's interesting when you think about Connecticut is we actually have a lot of the assets here. We have awesome schools. We're in one right now. We've got great corporations. We've got highly educated people. And you can see that for patents, we are in the high zone. It's almost all blue except for the stores corner, the top right corner. But yeah, this should show this is one of the real factors in innovation. Why isn't this translating into the company growth and job growth? Next slide. And so one of the things that we've found is that when you look at some of the things that we were just talking about, Connecticut's really good at some of those foundational pieces that are helping larger corporations really stay innovative and strong, but they don't necessarily create a lot of jobs that way. So what we're finding is that when we're talking about job growth, the things that are most promising from that, we're down 37 for outside of kind of private sector research, and job training we're last. And so job training is a really important concept. This is the idea that I'm in a current job, I can be more valuable in in a second firm over there, I'm going to change jobs and become much more productive. So Connecticut just is 50. We're not doing that a lot. Yeah.
What's a gazelle job?
Gazelle job, great question. A gazelle is a company that is growing 15% per year for 3 years. So gazelle jobs, and if you go to the next slide, this one. So gazelle, some recent research from the Kauffman Foundation tells us is that job growth happens in not just mostly in companies that are under 5 years old. So that happens. What this chart shows you is that in net jobs, and this is in Connecticut, most of our net jobs are coming from companies that are either stage 1 or stage 2. And so gazelles are what happens when a company goes from 5 people to 50 people to 100 people. So they're growing at a very fast pace. And what the research finds is that that's most likely to happen for companies that are under 5 years old. And so what has happened, we don't have a lot of that type of action happening in Connecticut. So despite having a lot of the assets, it hasn't been channeled in a way that allows us to then have that type of job growth. So this whole project is about how do we figure out a way to create supports in Connecticut to help the companies that have that type of potential. Next slide.
Can I ask a question on that last one?
Absolutely.
We're losing late-stage jobs there.
We are losing late
Is
stage.
that because they're leaving the state, or because they're becoming more efficient and they're doing it with fewer people?
Great question. It's probably both. I'm not sure what a percentage one is or the other. I think about a lot of news. There's been news of late, and I think not Sikorsky, but one of the other UTC companies open up a branch in Carolina, in South Carolina. So that's an example of saying, well, there's cheaper somewhere else. We're at a state where we're not concerned about growth. We are concerned about growth, but it's going to be defined as being profitable. And so that's turning into, that doesn't come out in these types of scores. It comes out as profit scores and shareholder value. And so that's something different than necessarily job creation. One of the things that we found is that it's really about network. So there was a project the Connecticut Technology Council did about 3 years ago where they interviewed CEOs of companies from Connecticut that were growing very quickly. What they found in speaking with them is that the issues they were concerned about were not the more traditional kind of business stuff, the taxes, healthcare costs, and those things. Those things were all important, but it wasn't what the CEO was thinking a lot about. The CEO was thinking about potential partners for them. Where's our customers? Where talent comes from. And those types of things come from networks and come from having easy access to a bunch of different networks. What we're finding in the places that are growing entrepreneurship really quickly, they're happening not inside Boston, they're happening inside Kendall Square, a 9-block radius inside Cambridge. And so this is an example and a map of Kendall Square. And so you can see MIT is over here. There's Techstars, an accelerator program that Bill's going to talk about later. That's up there. The Cambridge Innovation Center, which has 400 companies in it, is just a 5-minute walk over there. All of a sudden, you're at a coffee shop. You're finding people who are thinking about all the same stuff you're thinking about. You can find staff. You can find partners. You can have people think through different questions with you that are outside the company. So they're different networks. And what we're finding in Connecticut is that we really haven't done a good job of really giving access to our entrepreneurs to those types of networks. So this whole project fundamentally is about building access to each of those types of networks. Next one. Wrong way. There we go. Go all the way through it. So this is just a really quick overview of some of the background theory that we are using to think about how do we create an actual project, an actual program that's real for entrepreneurs in Connecticut. And so we talked about creating critical density. Those are bringing those are bringing networks together in specific places so that entrepreneurs, mentors, experts, funding sources, corporations are more apt to actually meet each other and speak with each other. One of the things that Connecticut has going for it are lovely open spaces. We've got a lot of great small towns, but that means we don't. I'm from Hartford. It took me an hour and a bit to drive here. There are folks from Hartford who never come here, and folks from here who never go north. So how do we create in Connecticut an opportunity to make sure that the companies that are in Stamford, the entrepreneurs that are here in Fairfield, can get matched with mentors and experts that are all across the state? So how can we create some type of coordinated whole? So that's been a very fascinating challenge that I'll speak about. One of the things that we're also thinking about is how do we create a system that helps us learn so that all the programs we have now, if they go well, we can continue investing in those. Use these state dollars wisely. If they don't go well, we can stop funding that and move those resources. So that's something that it's interesting sitting outside the state. So I'm a staff person of IACT20130130Iact.MOV. This project is completely funded through state dollars for now. That type of learning and then bringing in a kind of learning culture is a very difficult challenge that we have, but it's one that just has to go over well. And then link small companies to big companies. So that's the final one. There's a lot of, we were talking about this over dinner, there's a lot of interest now inside bigger corporations to use kind of startup thinking, entrepreneurial thinking inside bigger corporations. Is there a way then for us to link those two types of thinking so that Connecticut startups can speak more frequently with the bigger corporations? So, click through. So, this is just some background for the program. It was launched. It was actually created in 2011 as part of the Connecticut Jobs Bill, and so this is where there's $25 million allocated over 5 years to help build up this infrastructure. The idea being that everybody funded now will become self-sufficient over that 5-year period. So the money stops and the money stops. The focus again is on scalable companies that have the potential, who have that hockey stick growth curve. They can get big quickly, add a lot of jobs, and then we can surround them with the specific support that can help them kind of drive that growth. Unlike a lot of public projects, this one has some very specific goals. The goals are to help spawn 50 startup companies and then 75 stage 2 companies. So as you're thinking about this, that's helped us really focus in to say this isn't just about creating infrastructure and programs. Those are all nice. We need 125 early stage companies growing quickly in Connecticut.
Yeah, Ted. I think everybody in this room is aware of Malloy's first 5, then the second 5, then the next 5, then the next 5, then the next 5. And it's turned out, perspective we have is corporate cronyism. It's paying companies to stay here when we're supposed to be creating a culture and an environment to bring in startup companies here, where you're going to keep the university talent and everybody here.
Yeah.
So while this is coming out of Malloy, it seems to be coming out of Malloy, now where is this cultural change shift now, where the rest of the focus is on rewarding multi-billion-dollar companies that don't need the funding, like Blackstone going down to Stanford, right? And why isn't a focus on the startup companies, and where is the leadership? We have a lot of tech companies in Fairfield County, in the state of Connecticut, that can lead there.
Right.
And it's frustrating to see there's no leadership coming out of Hartford.
So no comment on that.
Hold up some frustration.
No, and I'm so honestly, absolutely. I think one of the things that this project is really takes very seriously is that economic development for a long time has been this mystery money. We're going to spend some cash here. We're actually going to buy jobs, and the minute that funding's gone, the jobs are gone. Things don't actually stick around. The difference with this is we'll actually get into it, is really looking at kind of hard data. Is actual progress happening with those companies? And it's not about the jobs first. The recognition of this is that the jobs happen after the company wins and is successful. So the idea, this is about helping the company, helping the entrepreneur. By helping them, they will actually grow jobs, and they will grow those jobs here. We are going to get those as a side effect of that firm doing well. So it's not about sprinkling money on corporations who have a promise of doing work in Connecticut. We can have another conversation offline about the value of those two approaches. I think there was an element of Lloyd just needing to get some quick wins and some quick buzz, and so there was a lot of political need for that. But this is the opposite of that. I know you're not satisfied at all.
Not after Solyndra, not after the public-private
Right.
relationship trying to come together.
So
and now there was no transparency there. That was all under the table, and it's frustrating to see that kind of capital go to a select few instead of being spread out amongst a lot of hardworking entrepreneurs who've got great ideas and have really no shot.
Go to the next one. Okay. So I'm going to skip to this. I'll go back to the other one. I mean, the idea behind this is that those 125 companies don't come from us picking our favorite 125 companies, because that'll get to your point. We're just picking friends, and we're funding friends. This slide represents a big funnel. One of the things that we have found is that you don't know who's going to be great. So in order to select the right company, we need a big funnel, and we need to be working with 500 companies, 700 companies, 700 products, teams, concepts, in order to actually get it down to the 50 startups and the 75 stage 2 firms. And the idea being that it doesn't take a lot of money, it doesn't take a lot of people paying millions of dollars to build up these big institutes to do this type of work. So if you go back to the slide, so this is a slide of how we've sorted out the state. We've got innovation hubs that are centered in Stamford, New Haven, Hartford, and then the eastern hub is a corridor between Stores and Avery Point. The idea being entrepreneurship happens across the state, everywhere, but it's also centered in major cities. The idea being also thinking about how those networks all come together. And so these are the ideas of a hub. And where I sit at the system level is thinking about, so we have all these hubs who are doing really great work, organizing assets in their area. How do we make sure there's coordination happening between all those hubs? That there's also learning community being built up inside all of those hubs and between them. And so I used the example earlier of a mentor in Stores being matched with a company in Stanford. Right, and now there's not a mechanism for that to happen. This is that mechanism. Go back. So what we are building right now are the assistants and the filters, because while we need to have a big funnel on a top, we need to have ways of understanding which companies are actually growing, which ones have the wherewithal, the potential to get behind. And the idea of this project and what's being developed right now are scoring mechanisms and ways of supporting companies, giving them small tests as they pass tests, and mobilizing more support for that company. Being able to score them and also giving them what we call front-of-the-line status. So if you think about an airport, you go to the airport, you've got the business class entrance, and it's empty and it's quick, and you've got coach class, which you've got to wait behind a bunch of people. What we're developing, you don't agree with that? You don't think
No, actually, I have a question on this slide.
Okay. Can I finish the thought first? The idea of what we are building now is a scoring system so that the companies that are passing all these different tests are able to get a lot quicker processing by the different organizations inside the state. An express grant from the Department of Economic Development, ACI loan, other types of bigger investment dollars, getting the stamp through the ecosystem will give them quicker access to these supports.
What do the sizes of the circles represent?
They represent growth and success.
Growth measured in number of jobs, number of employees, something like that within a company?
Number of jobs and then revenue. so that they would be put together.
So it doesn't represent simply companies that are able to scale up with a certain number of jobs, because what I see possibly being underrepresented is a large diversity of smaller companies, which seems to be a lot more of what we're seeing in the agile workplace. So,
I mean, it's very rare for these companies to get big like that. When you look at the stats and you see the percentage of the companies that have that type of hockey stick growth, we're talking 5%, 7%, 3%. If we can tweak that and get 10%, 9%, I mean, that's what we're actually going for right now. We're going for incremental growth along this curve, because this is really hard to do. There's one Google, there's one Facebook, there's just only one GE. There isn't a lot of that happening. So what we're trying to do is, we're kind of talking margins here in some way, but the margins will have a major impact, because that's 1,000 jobs, 2,000 jobs. And that's what we're going for, building up around that. That means we have to play a game of helping out a whole lot of companies to get to that point, because we're making a lot of bets, for a lot of really cheap bets and a lot of really cheap support. Isn't there? Yeah.
Just a question on this. This is a concept that
Go down.
the objective is to get to the
Go.
large component.
Right.
So if you put a time frame on that chart, what are you really looking at? Okay, I know it's a 4-year or 5-year program.
Right.
But, and I know that you're going to measure, each one of these hubs and the companies that evolve from that point forward as a metric. But realistically,
Right.
what are you looking at in terms of time frame?
For company growth, you mean? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, total impact. I mean, are we trying to create, do we have an objective that sort of suggests state that we're going to create 1,000 jobs, 5,000
We don't have a
jobs
job
as
objective. We have a
as
company
an endpoint?
objective. Yeah, there isn't a job objective. There's a company objective. We want to create companies that are growing 10% growth, 15% growth, 125 every year. I mean, that's the objective. So in that chart, how much time is that? Each year you're getting 125 companies, which is probably crazy, but that's the goal. And I think it's a stretch goal. So that goal came up because I think they had 40 people at a meeting, just like this, probably less people, all economic development experienced people, and saying, what's a not super crazy but kind of crazy number that we should aim for? And they said 125. The interesting thing about all this is that that's not the state actually doesn't collect this type of data. The state doesn't know how many companies grow at what speed in Connecticut, where those companies are. They haven't started creating it. We asked for that data to start being collected, and we're expecting that data to come back. That number may already be at 50. Maybe 50 just happens naturally. And we're aiming to then build that by 75. So but every year there's 125. I'm going to just get through, or is there a quick question? I'm worried about time.
Keep going, Tim. Let's hold it. Any questions?
We'll stop at the
Particularly
end.
debate questions.
Yeah.
Later.
So programs available statewide. What I want to talk about, what's going on right now in every single hub. So right now, what's happening is in each of these hubs, which are centered in these cities, you've got a growth diagnostic. So if you go to the website, ctnext.com, right now there's an assessment form that asks very similar questions to a business plan competition. Who's your competition? What's your product? Those types of things, which would then be seen by a Innovation Hub official inside one of these hubs. That is to help us understand, is this a company that has a growth potential or not? And we always err on the side of yes. And if that company is selected, they would then get a diagnostic done that is kind of a SWOT analysis for that company. And the big piece of that is there's always feedback that happens for that company. So each hub right now has a growth network developed that is a mix of professional service providers, so you've got lawyers, management consultants, but then what you've also got are really deep kind of subject matter experts who would look at that assessment and give feedback for that company, so that they have 3 or 4 perspectives on what their needs are. So that's existing right now. There's mentorship programs that are happening across the state in each hub. So each hub right now statewide, there's 105 mentors that are from a very wide range of expertise. Each company that comes to the assessment gets a SWOT analysis done is then matched with a mentor that makes sense for that company. And the mentors have gone through training. John trains them, and they're committed to meet with that company once a week for 4 weeks. Now that usually will be off because of schedules, but over a 2-month period, they'll meet 4 times. And so that's a commitment from all those mentors in that database. Then what happens is case management. So the hubs, you can think of them like a social worker. Where a social worker works with a company, refers them to a certain organization, follows up, finds out how that service went, what's happening now, what progress has that company made, where can I send, where can I refer you next? How can I make sure that company's getting the support that that company needs? We talk about it as ownership. Someone takes ownership over that company's growth, and that's something that is new in Connecticut. Innovation voucher program. So this is a sense, what we've heard from companies is that there's acute challenges companies face going through the innovation process, especially around R&D, around prototyping, and they need help finding somewhere to do a kind of, they're pre-manufacturing, they need to get a mold made. Where can they get that made? This is up to $10,000 to help overcome some of these really defined innovation challenges as part of that innovation process. So that's available right now on our website. So we also have an accelerator program. Bill's going to talk about that, so I'll just hold off on that. Similar to Bill's program, there is right now happening a social enterprise accelerator. So this is happening in Hartford. It's by a group called Reset, the Social Enterprise Trust. They have accepted 10 companies that have a social mission as well as an economic mission, and it's going through a 10-week program right now, helping ramp those companies up. So I'm not a very good artist, so if anybody can make a process map for me, I would love it. The intake, selection, review, and matching. That's just kind of to give you a sense of how that process works. I do have another chart which has a lot of arrows, and it's our internal kind of management chart. It would get you all lost. It looks like a map. But this just gives you a sense of how the process works and how companies go through it. We have built an innovation community map, which we're getting a website redesigned. It'll be up in about 3 weeks. This will be on that chart then. This is actually in Los Angeles. It's not. Yeah. What lake is that? It looks the exact same. It's the exact same model. The code for this is actually found on GitHub, so it's easy to find. And what it will have is any company signing up for services through the ecosystem and through partners will be found on the map. Incubators, co-working spaces, consulting companies will all be there. It'll be searchable. It'll be an opportunity for us to see what does the Connecticut innovation community actually look like. So that's what the map. I just wanted to give a brief overview about what the system roles are, what the hub roles are. We talked a lot about the statewide system really provides backbone support, trying to coordinate all the elements so that if something is working really well in one hub, we can share those stories and that work plan with all the other hubs, make that happen quickly. So lead development of the intake system so that while we have 4 hubs, there's standardized shared services across the state, no matter what hub companies come up with. We've designed an innovation voucher program. We lead a lot of rapid learning, so we meet monthly as a group to talk about what's happening, what companies are coming through, and then bring in other partners as well. So small business incubation programs, chamber groups, anybody that is touching entrepreneurship. We haven't focused on it yet just because we've been so consumed with building up some of these foundational processes. But over time, bringing on other partners to be part of this learning community is going to be a big piece. And then the role of the hubs is really to organize the assets in each of these regions. So reaching out to the different universities, the colleges, the R&D shops, all the mentors, making sure that anybody who touches entrepreneurship inside that region can play a role helping companies through the growth stage. And also just build really sticky community is another piece. I mean, one of the things that we found is that communities really help companies access networks and access resources. And so one of the things the hubs are also tasked with is kind of building that stickiness through events, panel discussions. That's going to be a big piece. And I should say that hubs are not an organization. Hubs are the fact that we've got the kind of bigger regions. They're trying to be coordinated by an entity now, but they're not a space. They're not an organization. They're an abstract concept. That the fact that we have all this action happening and trying to coordinate that in a smart way. Supporting young companies, filling in the gaps inside existing networks. So really taking ownership over the company. And that's it. So I'm sure we'll have lots of questions, and I look forward to it. I'm here all night if I need to be. You guys can go.
Thanks, Tim. As you can see, this is not your father's economic development program. This is new, cutting edge, and it's real. And we appreciate all the hard work you're putting into this, Tim, and we'll be able to take some more questions later. Our next speaker, whom I'll introduce while he is setting up, is Bill Gordon in Lean Lawn Ventures. Bill received a PhD from UC Berkeley, working with Nobel laureate James Watson. MBA, for which he worked in the buy-side for several asset management firms before founding a broadband business in Europe and later a biotech company here. Currently, he is an angel investor. He was one of the founders of the Stanford Innovation Center, and he is an advisor to a number of startups. And now, to tell us about one of those key components of the innovation ecosystem, the Business Accelerator, I could give you Bill Gordon. Bill, what's an accelerator?
Well, an accelerator that's differentiated from an incubator is that it's a more temporary structure generally. Let me just introduce myself one more time. And actually my partner Andy Moss, who's 17 years at Microsoft. Before that, had about 10 years of programming experience. Before he went to Microsoft, 17 years at Microsoft, running a number of businesses. Was employee number 10 in the consulting business at Microsoft, took it worldwide. And then the last 5 years of his career, he was actually the face of Microsoft on Capitol Hill in Washington. When he got there, it was the time of Napster and trying to prevent the music industry, pre-SOPA and PIPA, which we had last year, from strangling all the digital innovation that was happening at that time. So really interesting guy. Our accelerator is this. It's a 90-day program. We're running the first one in Stanford. I helped. My pride is that I helped by starting what's now known as the Stanford Innovation Center back in 2009 with Kip Bergstrom when he was the city of Stanford. Kip eventually moved to Hartford under Dan Malloy again and used the model of the Stanford Center that we wrestled with for about 2 or 3 years. We took a long wrestling match with the city to say this is good for you, and that and use that as the model for the other hubs, and began to really crystallize broader thinking about the innovation ecosystem. So I feel like I had an interesting role in helping to kick off the innovation ecosystem starting back in 2009. What we're doing let's go back. So what we're doing at Stanford is a 90-day program. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the curriculum that we're using and the way that we're teaching entrepreneurs, because our byline is we want to reduce the risks of startups. It doesn't mean that people that come to the accelerator are going to be the next Facebook or Google, but we can prevent a lot of the failures that many people experience in the early days, spending too much money before they understand that they don't really have a business. So what we're looking for basically is teams that didn't form yesterday. We don't want groups that just came out of a startup weekend last weekend and say, I got this idea, now I want some money. Because down at the bottom, we're empowered, and I'm not a state employee. This is a private enterprise that they've outsourced some activities to the private sector here. We have the ability to provide $20,000 to $25,000 per team. And again, this is money that's flowing through us from Connecticut Innovations to help support growth in the startup sector. And so we don't want teams that just formed yesterday. We're saying, look, it'd be nice if you were together for at least 3 months. You really talked about some things. You're, kind of on the chart that Tim was showing. You're not down at the bottom. You're getting up close to where it's really a startup. We really want people, if they have a technical issue, to have a technical member of the team. Don't spend, the next 90 days trying to find a programmer to build your website, that kind of thing. And so we're accepting applications until February 15th, again, starting in the first week of March. And again, the real key to this is the curriculum and a great group of mentors. And right now we have about 25, 30 mentors, and that number is growing, still looking for some more, so that we can have a real, broad base of skills that we can introduce these companies to. We'll play a bit of traffic cop in the relationships between the mentors and the teams. But again, we see this as one of the engines for growth. And one of the things we say is that, if you're seeing farther than others, it's because we're standing on the shoulders of giants in what we're doing with the accelerator. This is not a new model. It's been around for a number of years. The original one was the Y Combinator, a fellow named Paul Graham, that really took this sort of 90 days, mentorship, some kind of stipend to see what could come out. He was doing it as a personal experiment, started with single entrepreneurs, and finally decided that this really can't be done on average by a single person working by themselves, that it really needs to be teams. The teams work much better. So that was, now most of the accelerators, Connecticut ran its own. We ran 2 called Tech Starts, which is different from one that's better known called Tech Stars, which is in about 5 cities around the country. And that's the thing they passed on to Andy and I, at least for the moment. And maybe there'll be some other Tech Starts later, but we're going to see what we can accomplish, as the private sector. When we say, standing on the shoulders of giants, these are 2 really interesting characters in the entrepreneurial space these days. Bob is a Stanford resident. Steve is a Mountain View, California, in the heart of Silicon Valley. Been teaching at Stanford with an N university. They've written this book called The Startup Owner's Manual, which brings together a lot of thinking, particularly around the subject of lean, which is why we've chosen the name Lean Launch Ventures. And I'll go into lean here in the curriculum in a minute. The curriculum really does matter here, and that's why, what Bob and Steve have done, bringing together a body of knowledge, we think is very important, and it's going to echo some of the things that Doug said he discovered in his recent experience with Kickstarter here in a minute. What we used to believe, this is what you used to believe, that you write this, when I was at work, this one, the first assignment was, you got a good idea, go write the 50-page business plan. Spend 2-3 months doing that. The answer is not anymore. Not on average. And there is a place for the business plan, but it's later in the cycle. All you need to do is make the forecast, stick them in the back, and people, hold you against, executing to those numbers. And, we all know where some of those numbers came from. We're pulling them from different places. So, and again, that is not what's happening today. But startups, this is the key. Startups are what people used to think was startups are a smaller version of a large company. And that they, like large companies, can put together plans and just execute against those plans. And what we know now is that, the definition of a startup, as Bob and Steve has written it, and I really believe this, is a temporary organization in search of a scalable, repeatable, profitable business model. Until you know that this is the whole point of lean. Spend as little money as you possibly can. Create what they call, and the world calls now, the minimum viable product. And test it. Find that you have a market. Once you've proven that somebody really cares about what you're making, what you're building, what you're going to deliver, that you're either filling a need or solving a problem, don't spend a lot of money. Particularly back in the run-up to the dot-com bust, money was freely available and lots of money were being spent on really stupid ideas. But the whole point is here that startups search and companies execute. It's when you know that your search has led you to a good idea, then you write a business plan. But that's not the first thing you do. And then eventually you'll be able to execute. And the real key to this that's being used quite widely now, instead of the business plan, it's basically one page, the business model canvas. And it was only a year ago that I actually discovered that people on the West Coast have been doing this for 2, 3, 4 years. And it took a long time to kind of move east. And, I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've done a lot of stuff. And, as I looked at this and I read the book, I was doing a lot of this. Oh, my God. the things that I did in the past that with something as simple as this business model canvas, which is focused on really, here it says the offer, but it's the value proposition. What am I offering over here? I have a value proposition, I have customers, and the whole idea is make very simple statements. And these statements at the end of the day, I'm going to show you, are not facts, but they're guesses. Admit that they're guesses. I think I have something that these people want. And over time, I think I'm going to run it through these channels, and I think I'm going to keep these relationships with those people this way. Over here, I'm going to have some things I do internally with my resources, my activities, but I'm also going to have outside partners. And then I got revenue streams, and I got cost structures. Any business can be summarized on a business model canvas with a series of statements as simple as some of these. And that's the point. They're all guesses. You're searching to find out if your guesses are correct. And the final, and this is really one of the keys, that most startups fail from a lack of customers than from a failure of product development. It's just, I got this product, look. I have some very good friends that are still doing it the old way, and they spent lots of money, and they're going, here, build it, and they will come. And they're not coming. Why didn't they come? She didn't ask the right questions ahead of time. So the single most important ingredient of the way the lean method is being taught is, build your business model canvas, get your best guesses down, start prioritizing which guess fails, you really don't have a business, and then get out of the building. Actually interface with the world and figure out if you have something that's really going to work for people, and then come back and start refining it, and then take it back to them again and say, is this what you wanted? No? Okay, I'm going to refine it again. And the word sort of du jour is pivot. When your guess isn't right, make a correction. Pivot. So the state of play with accelerators is they're growing, they're everywhere, and so it's a 6 years ago when 6 or 7 years ago when Paul Graham started, he was the only game in town doing it kind of this way. The 90-day plan, money, mentors, they're cropping up everywhere, and there's it's a competitive environment. There are people traveling all over. And it's not just on the map in this country. Santiago, Chile was given $40,000, $50,000 for teams that would just come and stay for 6 months, and just be part of the enthusiasm there. But, as was referred to earlier, this is one of the things that we have going in Connecticut right now. This is from the Lean Startup Conference in San Francisco just about 6 weeks ago. Beth Comstock, the Chief Marketing Officer of our biggest company here in the state, General Electric. This is actually a friend of mine that has a TechCrunch channel called On Keen, a guy named Andrew Keen. And before the interview started, he quoted Beth Comstock as saying, well, General Electric is the world's oldest startup. And so he repeated that at the beginning of the interview, and he kind of chortled, and he said, well, maybe there were a couple in Babylonian times. I'll give you, Beth, I'll give you that you may be the oldest of the 20th century that's still trying to be in startup mode. And so, the claim is that at the top of the ladder here in Connecticut in terms of companies, that lean is the byword. She's traveling around the world with the author of what was called The Lean Startup, which was one of Steve Blank's students at Stanford that wrote a book called The Lean Startup. And so the two of them are on the road saying, lean is the answer to so many things. It's, any business, not just startups, but she said in the jet engine business, do cheaper prototypes. Let there be some transparency to how we're building these things and what they're going to look like and what they should perform like, and see if, Singapore Airlines or whoever cares. Yeah. But, this whole notion of GE, we regularly say, what would the entrepreneur do? It's all about connectivity with the customer and how fast you can get to market once you know you got a customer. That, that it's all about being lean these days. In terms of accelerators, this one came hot off the press literally about 4 hours ago into my email box. This is the New York Times, and basically what they're saying is bring your entrepreneurial idea related to digital media, e-commerce. We're in a screwed up industry that may be dying, but we still have a lot of customers, and you come and spend some time, the next 4 months with us in our facilities in New York, and we'll put our heads together. So they're basically pulling in entrepreneurs to say, let's work together. Like I say, this one literally is hot off the press in terms of what's happening in the accelerator space. So back to Lean Launch Ventures. This is what we're doing. One of the things that we believe is we're feeling the pulse of what's happening farther up the chain, and just that idea. Some ideas like what the New York Times had just announced has been the kinds of things we've been thinking about, that Tim was talking about. There's really room to put, small companies, big companies, mid-sized companies together in more creative ways. And that's one of the things we were talking about at dinner is I strongly believe that there's an opportunity still at this moment for Connecticut to kind of put its arms around this whole thing, particularly given that GE's at the top of the heap is saying this is really, really important to us as we GE go around the world, and really work hard to make Connecticut, and we like to talk about Connecticut as kind of the sixth borough of New York. So we don't like to say it's us versus them. We like to, because I spend a lot of time in New York, and there's a lot of good energy there. That it's, this is a really interesting time to say we can make this a center of excellence to really play with ideas like this that, have really just gotten here. I mean, people like me just a year ago, and there's still people that are not hearing about this stuff. So we think there's a big opportunity to capitalize on this methodology of lean. And what we're doing right now is working with startups starting in March, and hopefully other classes, but we're really thinking about ideas where we can also marry some of this as we go forward in our own startup business as Lean Launch Ventures, with other parts of the marketplace. So that's what I have for tonight.
Good. Thank you, Bill. I have one question before we move on, and that is, you provide them with $20,000 to $25,000.
That's actually, the market model is 6 to 8% of equity. We don't think that's the right model because it causes too much debate of, what's my idea worth today? We'd rather let them get some traction and actually let the next round of money set the price. So we're doing it as a convertible note, and what the negotiation will be, what level of discount from what the next guys pay, because we'd like to have it a little bit cheaper than the next guys. But, we really want to avoid that argument because you can spend so much time trying to figure out what a new idea is worth. But let's let the market, speak to that.
So how can they find out more about this or to apply? It's llventures.com.
It's llventures.co, not .com. .co. I have my business cards. Happy to, pass those out. And the application process is up on the web through that website until the 14th, 15th of November, when we're going to start really, studying and starting to pick.
And Tim, for you, where can they find out more? What's your website?
ctnext.com.
ctnext.com.
And also we should
up there too to receive notices.
That's where you go. And we should also
suggest you do because there's a lot of new great programs coming out almost daily. So, third, we've heard about a broad range of the innovation ecosystem, broad mix of programs and vouchers and space, an incubator where you really give your idea an opportunity to flourish with some intense support. And finally, our next speaker will talk about a topic that we've talked about before, angel investing, to help you launch your ideas. To speak about that will be John Cipher. John has many years of experience as a CEO coach, a success coach. And John recently has taken over the reins of the Angel Investor Forum, our angel investor group here in Connecticut. So we're looking to John for some outlook as to what to expect in the early stage equity markets. And also we want to hear from you, John, about this exciting new idea where you're launching a fund here in Connecticut, which should shorten the turnaround time between request and answer. John, tell us what's happening in the angel investor.
Thank you. I don't have any slides, so you have to look at me. It's the old technology. Angel Investor Forum, how many of you are familiar with the concept of angel investors? Okay, good. It's a group of about 45 angel investors in Connecticut that all invest our own money in startups. The group has been going since 2004. We accept applications on the website, and I'm about to tell you after a few minutes why it doesn't apply to most of you. But the website is angelinvestorforum.com. We screen those. We bring in 2 companies a month to meet with our members, do a presentation. If there's enough interest, we'll form a due diligence committee and look into the company. If there's enough interest from there, people will invest. What we've been doing up till now is individuals invest, like I said, their own money. and they've been making their own individual decisions about which companies they're going to invest and how much. We're also about to establish a fund where our members will buy in units of the fund, and once the fund votes that this company is worth investing in, we already have a pre-allocated chunk of money that will go into that company. So that will speed up that time. As well, individual members can invest alongside the fund or even outside the fund if they want. So it's an additional thing that we're doing. The way angel investing works is very similar to VC funding, except that the amounts are usually smaller, and like I said, it's our own money, whereas VCs invest somebody else's money. But both groups invest in equity, which means we buy preferred shares of your company, which also means we don't get anything, any return on our investment, till your company gets acquired, till Google buys it for $100 gazillion, or it goes IPO, which that's very rare these days. So it's a long-term, kind of very risky bet. The reason that makes it not apply to most of you, despite what you read in the press, because the press writes about all those kinds of companies. This company just got funded by this. This company just got $10 million from this, as if that's the goal. And that's kind of like saying, this horse just made it to the starting gate of the Kentucky Derby. And now they have to run the damn thing. And because of the way this kind of equity investment works, and I'll give you some numbers in a minute, since we don't get any money back till the company gets sold and gets big, that means we can only look at companies that have the potential to get big fast and to be sold for a very high multiple. And because the failure rate is so high, and we can't pick which ones are going to make it, all of them have to have the potential to be big enough to cover all of our losses on a portfolio basis. So what that amounts to is something like 500,000 companies a year get started in America. VCs fund about 3,000. Angels maybe fund about 50,000. So there's a huge gap of companies that don't get this kind of funding, even though that's what you hear about all the time in the press. And the reason is, it's not appropriate for most companies. Again, despite what you read in the press. So it's appropriate for companies that fit a definition like this. And particularly, this is a little specific to our group, but we typically look at companies that are raising between $1 million and $2 million that will be able to become cash flow positive with about that much, maybe 3 or 4 million, that will be able to grow fast enough and hopefully return 10 times our investment. And we know they're not all going to do that, so our portfolio is not going to grow 10x. But we need to have each of them see that potential. Which means if you're going to present to us, you want to show us how big a company needs to get in your industry to be sold for an amount that will return that kind of funds to the investors. Which is why it doesn't apply to a lot of really good companies. A lot of the companies that Tim was talking about, particularly the Stage 2 companies, are not these investable types. And that brings me to my other hat that I wear, which is CEO Boot Camp. And that is where I consult with growing companies to help the CEOs understand the dynamics of just scaling an organization. So you take it from building your product, selling your product, and then, I got to handle all these employees. And that's where you start tearing your hair out. And there are lessons to be learned about how to apply those kinds of things in small companies. And I'm also looking to do a bootstrappers boot camp, which are companies that want to grow without taking outside investment, or grow as fast as they can without taking outside investment for as long as they can. The result is that you will end up owning more of the company down the road. And that bootstrapping approach is more applicable to many more companies. And there's a progression, just like as inventors, you probably have lots of ideas. And probably not all of your ideas become really good products. Anybody have a 100% hit rate? I don't think so. But what makes, likewise, to go from a product to a company, there's a lot of products that don't make good companies. They might be hobbies, they might be gifts, they might be wonderful things, but they might not be a good company. A good company is defined by, and Peter Drucker said this, the purpose of a company is to make a customer. And a customer is somebody who pays you for what you make. So if you can find people to pay you for something, then you're making something that they want to buy. And the lean process that Bill was talking about is how to discover what that is quicker and cheaper than has been done in the past. So there's a fall off between ideas and products. There's also a fall off between the number of products that people invent and the people that can be running good companies. And there's again another fall off between good companies and good investments in the equity mode, the angel investing in the VC mode. So there's a lot of good companies that get started without that kind of funding. If yours fits that kind of funding, I definitely want to talk to you. If you have that scalability, if the market is big enough, then go to angelinvestorforum.com. I'll have business cards here as well. If you don't fit that and you're looking to bootstrap, then talk to me with my other hat on. And we can talk about that. And some of the guys at SCORE can help with companies like that as well. So the point is to take products, connect them with customers who value those products enough to pay for them. And that's what makes a company, and then you can scale that. What I like to say is a company has to do 3 things to be successful. The first is make something that somebody wants to buy. The second is find those people and sell it to them. And then the third is build an organization that does that over and over and over again at a cheaper price than the people are willing to pay. And so those are the 3 things that make it work. The investors are there when there's a right opportunity to speed that up. But it can be done often a lot slower, but still very successfully if you don't have that scalability. So those are the 2 hats that I wear, the CEO Boot Camp to help you grow your company and bootstrap it, and the Angel Investor Forum when there is the possibility of investment. So, thank you.
Thank you, John. John, you're also affiliated with the New Haven Hub.
Right. The CEO Boot Camp is run out of the New Haven Hub for the ecosystem.
And you also have a variety of resources and programs there. Do I understand correctly that you have some space available that they might be able to obtain for free if they qualify?
I don't know that it's for free. There is a co-working space that the New Haven Hub works out of called the Grove, and the Grove is about to approximately double its square footage in a couple weeks.
I do know that they do have correct space that you can rent at a very reasonable rate in a sort of community with other people also starting businesses where you can sort of share ideas and provide moral support to one another. That space rents from anywhere from $250 to $350 a month for a sort of shared space, table space in this community. The key is though that you're with other people in the same stage, having access to people like John in that community as well, and a hotline to people like Tim Coates. So if they'd like to access a voucher, for example, to help with a prototype development or a mold, should they work through their hubs, their nearest hub, or do they contact you directly?
They would go through the hubs, and that's the hub makes a decision about whether that's a voucher that's a good spend of money.
So you met John. John's affiliated with the hub. You can contact him and get connected. You can contact me, Mike Brewer, with the Entrepreneurship Foundation. I'll leave a stack of cards here. I'm pretty familiar with the hubs and the people who are running them. The one closest to us in Stanford, the Stanford Innovation Center, which Bill Gordon is affiliated with. So you've met Bill now, and he can help you connect there. John with New Haven. Tim's up in the Hartford area. There's a hub in Hartford and one in stores as well. So I know some of you are spread around the state here, so you would want to introduce yourself to the people who run the hub probably nearest you, because the milk and cookies should be equally distributed throughout those different venues. So, Doug, how many seconds do we have left for Q&A?
About 300.
Okay. So, fire away, ladies and gentlemen.
Mike.
Okay, is your name first
Tim.
name Jim or Kim?
Neither. Tim.
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 Tim, thank you.
Who's the easy one?
And
Yeah. If that's the question, that's great.
Pretty much cover all three, but I'll start with Tim. I think you said you were looking for you have 105 certified veterans.
Correct. Not all of them have gone through training, but 105 that have signed up and registered.
Let's just refresh everybody's thinking here. I don't know how many of you know, there are 7 chapters of SCORE in Connecticut. The fellow running down from Hartford doesn't have to run down. Let me tell you where they are. Stamford, Bridgeport, New Haven, and Old Saybrook, Danbury, Torrington, and Hartford. We have 325 certified mentors. We do not charge for our time. Make that aware.
Totally. And each hub should be contacting you to make sure that those mentors there should be such a symbiosis between these two groups that should be something that happens.
Are you saying you are going to?
Each hub should be doing that. If they're not, we should talk so I can make sure that they are doing that.
Let the hubs know that what I just said.
Because I know that the Stanford group has reached out.
There was just a SCORE meeting there last week.
Right.
At Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford.
Yeah.
So you got up with Mike.
Right.
Well, I'm not directly in contact with that part of it.
No, you're in New Haven.
Well, no, I'm connected to Stanford, but different people are doing different things in Stanford. So, one of the other people probably was more directly involved with how SCORE ended up being there. The other.
Yeah. It's a great resource, so we've got to take it. It's a great resource.
Comment, Tim. 1 week, 1 day a week for 4 weeks.
That's what we're recommending to the mentors.
We stay for as long as you want to. I've mentored people for years. We don't walk away after 4 weeks.
We have about 100 seconds left.
Right.
What did you say?
Yes, sir.
Quick question for Tim. Can you kind of broad brush the types of companies that you're
Sure.
looking for? There's been some discussion about pharmaceuticals.
Right. So the general rule is that most of the companies are probably going to be tech-based companies, because those are the ones that have that potential to ride that growth curve. The idea, though, is that this is all about scalability, and for scalability companies. So if it's a Ben's Bread, if it's a Subway franchise, or the next franchise model, those companies are all scaling and are all scalable. So it's unlikely we will have a lot of those types, but they're all great, and we want to be bringing those companies in. We've got mentors, SCORE's around, they've got mentors that can help those types of companies. This is really about being a front door for Connecticut to a set of resources behind the scenes that are getting organized. So it's for all of that.
All the way in the back.
Excellent. I just wanted to make a point to this group. In addition to the hubs, there are, there's a CPIN, network, that is not funded by the state, but basically they're both university-based incubators. There's a UB one, there's a UConn one, there's several others in other places, as well as private ones. And they also provide mentoring services and services on public. Sometimes with the same people and sometimes with other people, for example. So if any of you are interested, cbin.org, I think, is the website. And there's a list of all the incubators in Connecticut. I don't know if the hubs have gotten there yet.
Probably not.
There is a map that identifies the incubator, what they focus on, for example, whether they're general purpose incubators or special incubators, et cetera, et cetera. And they can put you in touch with lots of help as well. We have a whole network of about 10 professional services firms, including law firms and CPAs, et cetera, who volunteer some of their time, not all of their time, to help startups, as an example.
Good.
So I just want to let you know that.
No, that's great.
Thanks,
Thanks.
Dad. We have 10 seconds left. If anybody has an actual question. No?
Back in the back row.
On the
One of the
back, we have a
students.
question.
Hi, my name is Chris Manley. I'm a senior here at Pittsburgh University in entrepreneurship section.
speak up a little?
Sorry. I'm a senior here at Fairfield University, and entrepreneurship is actually my minor. And I just had a quick question. As I was listening through the presentations, I was wondering, is there a set amount of how much the business needs to be actually in Connecticut? When, for example, if I come to my mentor with a question about accessing a different part of the supply chain globally in order to become competitive against my competitor, would I be shied away from that and have to use a Connecticut resource, and even though it's more expensive?
Good question. We just had this example. We had a voucher application that came in to actually do a manufacturing overseas. And in China, the preference is always given for Connecticut. If the best thing for that company, and it's truly the best thing for that company, and it's located somewhere else, that's fine. The idea being that the best professor match for that company could be inside Massachusetts. The best a lawyer for that company might not be found here. We want to make sure that the company is looking for help in Connecticut first. But if after having a lot of tries, so for example, for this other example inside China, we cost compared China, and for an injection molding the cost was $7,000 US. The cheapest manufacturing example we could find was $80,000. So it was just this ridiculously discrepancy. So much so that we kind of looked at it and said, $80,000, is that really the cheapest? Did you really look hard? But they found 3 of them. They went and they searched out and they said that's the cheapest. What happened is the growth advisor in the hub worked with the company and found another use for that voucher that was more that was the right spend of that firm with a service provider inside the state. So we didn't actually spend the money over there. And we're not comfortable doing that right now. That's just a step too far. The preference is always in Connecticut. If the best thing for the company is not here, we'll entertain that.
Good. Thank you, gentlemen.
Typically, after the meeting is over, people tend to gravitate down to Archie Moore's. Is there anybody going down to Archie Moore's? Look around, find the people who are raising their hands. These are the people you want to follow. It's down in Sanford Avenue. People go there typically for a beer or maybe a snack. Thanks for coming, and I hope we'll see you next month.